So you know the drill by now. I am taking a trip through gaming history from the third generation all the way to the current generation, and today it's time to look at probably my favorite generation, the sixth generation. It's actually the first generation I'm going to cover all the consoles from the generation. The third generation I skipped over the Atari XEGS. The fourth generation I skipped over the Neo Geo and TurboGrafx 16. The fifth generation I skipped all of these. So all the consoles that this generation consisted of was the GameCube from Nintendo, Sega with their Dreamcast, Sony with their PlayStation 2, and the all new competitor, and to date the latest new competitor, Microsoft, releasing their Xbox. So the sixth generation started with the Sega Dreamcast. The last generation, Sega flopped hard with the Sega Saturn and had some big financial losses, and the Saturn got discontinued fairly quick after it launched. There were rumors though of a new Sega console releasing. This began as a rumor for a Saturn II or an add-on for the Sega Saturn, but the rumors later changed into a completely new console due to the poor performance of the Saturn. Eventually Sega revealed the Dreamcast on May 21st, 1998, and it released in November 1998 in Japan and later in 1999 everywhere else. And while the launch went really good, being the best for Sega in the US, Sony had other plans. They revealed their new console, a follow-up to the way too popular PlayStation, named the PlayStation 2. Well, Sony dug Sega's grave right there. Revealed at Tokyo Game Show on March 2nd of 1999, Sony announced that they would continue making consoles and promptly revealed the PlayStation 2. Together with the fact that it would be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 1, have a built-in DVD player and also have internet connectivity. The PlayStation 1 already was the best-selling video game console at that time, and releasing a sequel that would also be backwards compatible with it already gave a big reason for all PlayStation 1 owners to buy a PlayStation 2. But because Sega was the first console in the sixth generation, it had a steady first year and sold 1.5 million units at the end of 1999, but it slowly began to decline as soon as January of 2000. It also didn't help that the PlayStation 2 also released at the beginning of the 2000s in Japan and at the end of the 2000s in the West. The PlayStation 2 was really hard to find the first few months and were sold out everywhere. A part of the reason that it did so well is of course because of the success of the PlayStation 1 and partly because it was a DVD player. DVD players were really popular in the early 2000s and the PlayStation 2 was able to play DVDs and pretty cheap at that. It did really well and caused Sega some severe problems in the beginning of the 2000s. So much in fact that Sega decided in early 2001 that it was better to just leave the console market and strictly focus on game development. But was that really a good decision? Official support ended in early 2001, but was supported throughout the year by third parties, but was later dropped in favor of the PlayStation 2. Nintendo also came in at mid-1999 with the announcement that they would also release a new console this generation called Project Dolphin. At E3 2001, Nintendo fully revealed the Nintendo GameCube and that it would actually use discs.
Holy shit, Nintendo uses discs? That almost seems too good to be true. That's because it is.
Yeah, it didn't use the same discs as PlayStation 2, but it used mini discs because they were harder to pirate. Nintendo is so keen on privacy, they'd give up a couple million sales for it. It launched for $200 in September and November of 2001 in Japan and North America, and in May of 2002 in PAL territories.
Fuck!
Having used mini discs for the GameCube, Nintendo's console had lacking third-party support. I mean, they didn't use cartridges this time, so that was a positive, though I don't understand why Nintendo didn't just go for the standard size disc. But okay, after the PlayStation 2 dug a grave for the Dreamcast, in March of 2000, computer developer Microsoft announced that they were also developing a console. Due to the PlayStation 2 having a DVD player and playable CD-ROMs, Microsoft was afraid that video game consoles would threaten the sales of personal computer games, and before the Xbox was a thing, Microsoft already was a game developer making things like Flight Simulator and Age of Empires. But due to the success of the PlayStation, console gaming became much more popular than PC gaming. So Microsoft began work on the Xbox and released it in November of 2001 in North America and 2002 everywhere else. It had a surprisingly successful launch, selling 1.5 million consoles at the end of 2001, and did this with their new IP, Halo, with their first game, Combat Evolved, which this game alone reached 1 million sales by April of 2002. The Xbox, like Sony, used normal discs, so third party was pretty solid, and it wasn't like that Nintendo garbage that they only kind of did discs. The Xbox did pretty well overall, but in the end, Microsoft lost $4 million over the course of the console.
And that was the 6th generation. It is honestly my favorite generation, and I have almost played every console on there, except for the Sega Dreamcast. But let's go to the numbers and see who came out on top. Do we even have to discuss that? In the end, at the bottom came the Sega Dreamcast, with a measly 9.13 million sold. It was Sega's last console, and after this journey, it is pretty apparent why. Their consoles only really reached the 10 million mark, with an exception of the Sega Mega Drive, but maybe it was better this way. Nintendo's GameCube sold 21.75 million units, and due to using mini discs, the third-party support was lacking and there was no way to play DVDs on it, which at the time was a really big hit for Nintendo. Second came the Xbox. Wait, am I reading this correct? Yeah, the Xbox came second with 24 million units sold, and despite it being moderately successful, it was nothing compared to the PlayStation 2, which sold a total of 158.70 million. To this day, it is the best selling console. No other console came even close to beating it. The only thing that really came close was the Nintendo DS. But that's a handheld, so that doesn't really count. I plan on covering the handhelds another time though, because it's a whole other market than just the consoles. So first we'll go over the consoles and then maybe we'll cover the handhelds. But for now, thank you for watching and see you next time.